Hi, everyone. I'm so excited and so grateful to be here and to share some of this work with all of you. So to dive right in, the theme of this workshop has been on violence exposure, and for the last 2 days, we've talked so much about the profound impact that violence can have on young people. And the flip side of that, which I focus on in my work, is safety, and how safety can be dramatically important for improving the lives and well-being of children. I tend to focus on neighborhood environments and contexts, and there is endless amounts of data out there that demonstrate that neighborhood safety matters for child development. However, a question in the field and an inconsistency is how exactly we define neighborhood safety. So 2 common examples that you'll see in the literature quite frequently might be using crime statistics for a municipality, or asking a parent, do you believe your child's neighborhood is safe for them to play? And in just these 2 examples, we can see some of the inconsistencies that lead to issues in our data. Some of our measures are objective, while others are based on perceptions, and some come from the family level, while others are based on the community level. And from a theoretical lens, we might argue that we're really capturing different things with these kinds of operationalizations of neighborhood safety. And so the goal of my project was to take a deep dive to try to understand if the established relationship we've observed between neighborhood safety and child behavior depends on how exactly neighborhood safety is measured. And so to do this, my team and I had 2 big aims. The first was simply to describe the association between neighborhood safety, measured in 4 different ways, which I'll go over in just a moment, and child internalizing and externalizing behaviors. And the second was more of an exploratory aim, but to try to do some iterative model building to investigate to see if there might be an interaction between children's lived experience of violence exposure and other measures of neighborhood safety we had access to. So in a quick talk like this, I cannot possibly go over all the methods in depth, but the very quick summary is that I used Generation R data from the Netherlands and had a final sample of 3,291 children who were between the ages of 9 and 10. And I used this data to run mixed effects linear models with nesting by family and neighborhood that tried to estimate the levels of internalizing and externalizing behaviors in these kiddos while adjusting for a whole slew of sociodemographic characteristics. And I operationalized neighborhood safety in 4 ways. And I want to just take a moment to focus on that because that was really at the heart of this study. So the first one was a family-level objective measure of neighborhood safety. And what I mean by that is we ask families, has your child experienced threat or harm in their neighborhood? The second measure was a family-level perceived neighborhood safety. And that came from asking parents, do you think your neighborhood is a safe place for your child to play? The second 2 measures were from the community level. Both came from the Wijkprofiel, which is a collection of municipal data from the city of Rotterdam. One of the measures was objective and was based on a variety of crime statistics, and the other one was subjective and based on survey data from a representative sample of members of the different neighborhoods of the city. And so, what did we find? For the first aim, we found a clear association between neighborhood safety, measured in many different ways, and behavior, particularly internalizing behaviors. So for internalizing behaviors, which are on the top half of this chart, we found a significant association with parents' reports of children's experiences, parents' perceptions of neighborhood safety, and with objective neighborhood safety, even when adjusting for all covariates. For externalizing behaviors, we really only saw a significant association for the actual experiences of children, though there was a trend for perception. So based on this, we focused on internalizing behaviors for the subsequent interaction models. And what we found there is that there is indeed an interaction between child's lived experience of harm in their neighborhoods and other measures of neighborhood safety. And this is all the data and the p-values and the betas, but I think it's much easier to see in a visual form, so I'm going to explain it that way instead. And this is the overview of what we found. So starting at the top, the first most important question to ask in our study based on this data was, has a child had a negative experience in their neighborhood? If the answer was no, so for children who had not had these kind of direct negative experiences, it was parent perception of neighborhood safety that significantly predicted internalizing behaviors. In contrast, for children who had had some sort of negative direct experience in their neighborhood, parent perceptions of neighborhood safety were no longer associated with internalizing behaviors. However, we did find a trend towards a possible association with objective neighborhood safety for these children that did not exist for the children who had not experienced harm. And so we can see here that there's emerging a pattern that suggests a hierarchy of neighborhood safety exposures that link to internalizing behaviors. So to wrap things up, just 3 key points I want to make. First, this is all obviously exploratory and cross-sectional data, and so in order to draw any kind of conclusions about possible causal mechanisms, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of longitudinal follow-up and replication in other populations. However, despite these limitations, I find this data really compelling because to me, they begin to answer the question, what is it that matters about children's experiences of safety in their neighborhoods? And is it perhaps different things, the objective risk of harm versus their family's fears of harm, that matter for different children based on what they have personally had as part of their lives? And so I think these findings build on a robust literature of child violence exposure like we've been discussing for this entire conference. And I'm excited by the implications they may have for measurement of neighborhood safety in the future and how we might design effective interventions on the community level to help children who have experienced and who have not experienced harm. So I will take questions at this time. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Logan. We've got a few minutes for questions at the beginning here, but there's also, you can have questions after the next presentation as well.
Thank you so much. Great talk. Can I ask you, so you mentioned that the objective measure of neighborhood was parents reported, isn't it?
So there were 2 objective measures of neighborhood safety. One was collected on the family level, and the other one was collected on the community level. So objective is a funny word for the one collected on the family level because we really had no other way. It was based on 3 questions in a trauma interview with parents. Has your child experienced theft in the neighborhood? Has your child been a victim of violence in the neighborhood? And has your child been a victim of threatened violence? And so that was as objective as we could get on the family level.
But surely Rotterdam have kind of official measures of crime in different neighborhoods. Would it be possible to kind of access those data so you can add that to the data sets?
That's a great question. I think we looked at the official measures from the municipality for the community level measures of neighborhood, but it might be difficult to link measures of actual crimes against children, whether or not they had been reported to the actual members of the study. But I can certainly check. Thank you.
Just the one more question.
Well, first of all, to say that was fantastic, and I'm pretty sure that I wasn't that erudite during my PhD. Just to say that I think you're spot on with the longitudinal or the need for, because of course we've got this reverse causality because parents who are more anxious are probably going to have kids who are more anxious, and they're going to be more anxious about their neighbourhood. So exactly what you've done here I think is fantastic. The clearest finding is that kids who actually had something bad happen to them are probably living in neighbourhoods where bad things happen. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the intervention point, which is about child violence. I suspect the other one is parent anxiety and not about neighbourhood safety. But that dissonance I think is really interesting.
Absolutely, and I do think that perceptions of neighborhood safety being used as a measure is deeply confounded by parental anxiety. But one thing that's interesting is we did look at measures of maternal anxiety as a covariate in these models in a supplementary analysis, and the models were still significant. So a fun note that I still haven't explored in depth.
Okay, thanks very much, Logan.
Thank
that
you.
was really excellent.